The stickman is scrolling through his cell phone feed when that video with millions of views appears. A charismatic influencer, full of energy, pointing to phrases on the screen that glow in large letters. Loud budgeting is the secret to financial freedom. Element. The stickman stops, widens his eyes, and feels like he's just discovered the magic key that will change his life. In seconds, he already imagines himself rich, his bank account exploding with money, graphs rising nonstop, applause everywhere, friends asking for tips and him in the center, as if he had cracked the code of financial success. But of course, all this happens only inside his head. In reality, the stickman has no idea what loud budgeting means. He didn't research, he didn't read anything, he didn't understand the concept, he just repeats the words as if they were a powerful mantra. Loud budgeting, loud budgeting, loud budgeting. He believes that just by pronouncing the term fashionable, he is already participating in something great, as if simply adhering to the buzzword was enough to transform his life. It's almost like someone who buys a self-help book and feels transformed without ever having read a page. The expectation of the stickman is status. He thinks, now I'm within the group that understands modern finance, I'm going to impress others just by saying that fancy expression. The sense of belonging to the digital tribe is strong. He already sees himself in the comments correcting those who do not know the term as if he were a master of financial wisdom, but in practice, what he did was fall headlong into a fashion without an instruction manual. And that's when the illusion starts to unravel. Because when you act on automatic, believing that beautiful word equals real result, the fall comes quickly. Loud budgeting doesn't fill your wallet, you don't pay bills, you don't organize finances by yourself. The stickman doesn't realize it yet, but he has already started. Building a sandcastle, and the tide of real life, with its bills and interest, is coming to bring everything down in a matter of seconds. The dream of instant wealth will soon turn out to be just another financial nightmare. The stickman, excited about the new trend, comes to believe that loud budgeting simply means cutting everything radically and announcing to the whole world that he is saving. He goes into exaggerated mode. He starts by denying invitations to go out, refuses coffees with friends after work, and even the traditional weekend pizza becomes unnecessary spending. At every opportunity, he repeats aloud as if it were a trophy, I'm doing loud budgeting. Element. He thinks that the more noise he makes, the richer he will become, as if the shouting were directly proportional to the balance of the bank account. At first, his friends even laugh, finding it funny, but soon patience runs out. He no longer shows up at any get-togethers, always has an excuse, always insists that he needs to stick to the budget, even though he never really did decent planning. On the rare occasions he goes, he arrives empty-handed, repeats several times that he cannot spend anything, and still tries to convince others to follow the same path. The atmosphere cools down quickly because no one can stand to be around someone who only talks about meaningless economics and still poses as a sage. And the worst, at the end of the month, despite all the resignations, reality hits hard. The bank account remains in the red. He discovers that shouting loud budgeting doesn't pay interest on the card, doesn't cover back rent, and doesn't solve the disorganized way he handles money. The supposed freedom promised by the trend turns into prison. He doesn't go out. He doesn't have fun. He doesn't enjoy anything, but he doesn't have any money left either. The result is cruel, neither free nor rich, just lonely and frustrated. The stickman has officially become the boring one of the wheel, the one who talks loudly about the economy, but remains sunk in debt. Now the stickman enters the exaggerated mode once and for all, as if he had taken on a character. He appears wearing a giant t-shirt with the phrase emblazoned in screaming letters. Loud budgeting. For him, it is not enough to save in silence, it is necessary to transform each financial microdecision into a public spectacle. At the grocery store, he holds up a megaphone and starts announcing loud and clear, I'm not going to buy this because I'm saving up. Element. Customers stop, look confused. Some whisper, and others start laughing at the scene. The stickman, however, thinks he is inspiring the masses. In line at the cinema, the performance continues. He shouts for everyone to hear, my budget doesn't allow popcorn. Element. People around look at each other, some with embarrassed faces, others recording videos to post as a meme. The stickman, in his mind, believes he is giving a financial education class, but in practice, it is only showing how much it did not understand anything of the concept it tried to copy. The result is a ridiculous spectacle, a show of the absurd in which the audience does not applaud. only laughs or turns their faces. The problem is that he believes that being loud about his savings will solve his problems. But yelling doesn't pay bills, nor does it create discipline. On the contrary, the more he tries to get attention, the more he exposes his cluelessness. The show that should be inspired turns into a walking joke. Every cry of economy sounds like desperation, the stickman's credibility plummets, and, little by little, he becomes just a caricature character, a living warning of how not to act. And if you don't want to fall into the same ridicule as the stickman, subscribe to the channel now. Here we show, with humor and irony, what really matters when it comes to money without needing a megaphone to look smart. The stickman was sure that with the so-called loud budgeting, he would finally gain full control of his finances. In his mind, it was simple. Cut here, announce there, and that's it. Magic balance guaranteed. But what happens is exactly the opposite. Without really understanding the concept, he only starts to cut random expenses like someone shooting in the dark and continues to spend poorly in the most critical areas. It's as if you've decided to save crumbs while wasting the whole bread. He is proud to deny cheap coffee as if it would revolutionize the bank balance, but in the same week, he can't resist and makes impulsive purchases on his credit card, new headphones, fashionable sneakers, even a video game in 12 installments. In his distorted logic, these expenses don't count. After all, he is already doing loud budgeting. To top it off, he avoids a simple outing with friends to control expenses, but a few days later, he exceeds the limit in an installment of a new cell phone that he didn't even need. Dream of control, the one that seems so beautiful in theory, dies before it even ignites the first spark. He realizes, belatedly, that he is saving where he shouldn't and spending money precisely where it hurts the most. Loud budgeting, in the end, became just an empty label, beautiful to post, terrible to practice. The illusion of control reveals itself as another financial fad trap which only increases frustration and mess in the pocket. What about you? Have you ever fallen into the trap of cutting out small things while continuing to spend poorly on big things? Tell us about your experience here in the comments. Who knows, maybe your story helps another stickman not to repeat the same mistake. The stickman, after so much useless effort, finally begins to realize that he has entered another one of those passing fads. Yesterday, I swore that minimalism would be salvation. He spent weeks taking pictures of an empty closet, pretending that he had found peace by living with less. But, in practice, he was still in debt. Today, it's loud budgeting with a printed t-shirt and megaphone in hand. Tomorrow will be another glamorous imported term, probably in English, with the face of a revolutionary secret. He never really learned how to organize his own finances. He just keeps jumping from label to label, like someone who changes clothes without ever taking a shower. What he actually signed was a plan of illusion. It's as if you had taken out a premium subscription to self-deception, you follow buzzwords, get frustrated, mentally cancel, and then you're ready to sign up for the next one. The cycle never ends. And the more he tries to look modern, the more stuck he gets into superficial ideas that don't change anything deep down. Deep down, the stickman feels like someone who pays dearly for a useless service. He is imprisoned, deceived, and increasingly aimless. Each new fad promises liberation, but delivers only more anxiety and confusion. The result is the same. The account does not add up, life does not change, and the feeling of failure increases. Loud budgeting without comprehension has become just another modern hell of self-deception, a theater where he pays the expensive ticket to watch his own. Frustration on stage, everything falls apart for good. His friends no longer call him for anything because they can't stand to hear the endless litany about economics without logic. At each meeting, it was the same thing. He interrupted conversations to repeat empty slogans as if he had discovered the secret formula of wealth. The result? Loneliness. He's become the financial fashion guy, but not in a good way, just someone everyone runs away from. The family also begins to suspect that he has gone crazy. At meetings, he even refuses a slice of birthday cake, claiming that it is not in the budget. People laugh, others are embarrassed, but deep down everyone realizes that it has crossed the line. What seemed like discipline became a caricature. Meanwhile, reality does not forgive. The bank account remains in the red. Interest, late bills, and debts continue to grow because loud budgeting has never made a real difference. There's no spreadsheet, there's no method, There's no change in behavior, just an empty label repeated aloud. One night, the stickman looks in the mirror and finally faces the truth. He realizes that it is not a fashionable term that saves anyone. What really makes a difference is discipline, basic budgeting, knowledge, and plain old common sense. He fell headlong into the trend, believing in the magic shortcut. But the fall was so strong that now he needs to get back up from scratch. Worse, in addition to the financial mess, it also carries the shame of having believed in an illusion sold as a solution. At the end of all the confusion, the stickman finds himself standing in front of a crossroads. On the one hand, the path he has always followed, to keep falling for every trendy term that appears on the internet, repeating without understanding anything, trying to look smart while sinking deeper and deeper. On the other hand, a less glamorous but much more solid path, stop, breathe, and finally really learn about personal finance with patience, discipline, and awareness. He realizes that it doesn't matter what name they come up with. Today it's loud budgeting. Yesterday it was financial minimalism. Tomorrow it could be quiet quitting, cash stuffing, or any other pretty word that sounds sophisticated. But the reality is harsh. Without knowing what this really means, you don't achieve anything. It just becomes a joke, and the stickman is tired of being the clown of the show. The choice is now clear. Either he continues in the theater of fads, pretending that he is in control while life falls apart, or he begins to seek true financial freedom, which does not come from buzzwords, but from real learning and practice. The stickman looks directly at the camera, as if talking to the viewer, and leaves the message. Next time you hear a new term, don't repeat it. Understand first, because fads without practice only lead you to the hole. And if you don't want to fall into the hole of financial illusions either, subscribe to the channel now. Here we dismantle the fads, show the reality behind the fashionable terms, and teach, with irony and good humor, how to really build freedom. And take advantage of it. Leave in the comments what was the last financial fad you fell into. Who knows? Maybe your story will become the subject of the next video.